My name is Kelly Bussell, and I'm 27 years old. I'm a student recruiter at a university, which means I visit local high schools and tell them about the university. This is Kelly Bussell calling from University. I had always wanted to visit islands in the Pacific, and Hawaii was somewhere I dreamed about going. I've always admired the scenery and beauty of Hawaii, and I'd heard a lot about the culture, so I was drawn there to find out what the people were like. Hawaii became the 50th state of the United States in 1959. Its islands are located in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I would be visiting 3 of the Hawaiian islands, Maui, Lanai, and Molokai. I wanted to experience the true Hawaii and get away from the tourist areas. I landed in Maui, the second largest island in the Hawaiian chain.
Welcome to Hawaii.
I would be visiting a side of Maui most tourists don't see. Surprisingly, there are places in Hawaii that resemble the Old West. My intention was to visit the real Hawaii, and I arranged for a guide, Will, to show me the sights of Maui. The first thing Will showed me was a crater that had erupted 1 million years ago and had helped to form the island of Maui. Well, this scenery is amazing. Can you tell me where we are right now?
We're at the top of Mount Haleakala. This crater sits 10,023-foot level, and the crater itself is extinct.
What does Haleakala mean?
Pink house. Hale is the house, and Akala is the color pink.
Well, what's the significance of the crater that we're standing in?
The legend that coincides with Maui and this crater. Maui came up to the top of the crater to rope the sun and to hold the sun back so his mom could make clothing. And since the sun was moving a lot faster than the mom could finish making her clothing, so Maui came up here with his rope and lassoed the sun and held it back. And it gives mom a longer time and the Hawaiians a longer time in the year.
And that's why it's so sunny here.
That's why it's so sunny here.
Is there anything else significant about the crater for the Hawaiian culture?
This is a training center for a lot of very ancients of ancients, very wise of wise. We would call them kahunas. They would be considered shamans or psychics. And they would live up here and they would teach children everything to do in the Hawaiian culture from A to Z.
Was it as cold up here as it is right now?
No, it wasn't. It was nice and warm.
Well, at least I wasn't as cold as those people riding their bikes down the hill. But Maui's such a beautiful place, you can't help wanting to get closer to nature. It's not every day you take the time to enjoy what's around you, so having the opportunity to do so was extraordinary for me. I wanted to experience more of Hawaii's natural phenomena, so Will brought me to an area where there had been lava flow. Is this real lava?
This is real lava. This is very old. Comes from the crater that we just left from, that made this peninsula. And since this is pahoihoi.
Hoi hoi?
This is this is lava. Slow-moving lava. Big, bulky moving lava.
What's the difference between this and the red lava that we always see?
The red lava is more liquefied. It's pahoihoi, so it moves like water.
And how did this lava get from the crater that we were at this morning?
Through a lot of eruptions, thousands of years of completely erupting and forming a lava flow out of the crater, and basically it ran down to where the escape was, which is the ocean. And as it reached the ocean, it hardened, getting into the water. And now this is the land base.
So how old would this?
Thousands of years old. Thousands.
As we were driving back towards town, we stumbled upon a waterfall, and it was hot, so I decided to go for a swim. The water was pretty cold at first, but it was very refreshing. I actually swam right to the waterfall. Swimming in a waterfall is something you only see in films, so it felt like my own private movie. After I got out, Will and I saw the most beautiful rainbow. Well, that's an amazing rainbow. There's actually two of them. Can you tell me how that happens?
Through the mist and to the sun. When the mist hits the sun at the right angle, it causes the rainbow to happen, and sometimes you have a double rainbow.
And is this a common occurrence?
This is a common occurrence.
That is so beautiful. It actually starts right from the water and then goes all the way.
All the way around.
So do you think there's a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. It wasn't gold, but I would find more precious things in the following days. The next stop on my visit to the Hawaiian Islands was Lanai. Lanai is known as the Pineapple Island because at one time it was covered with pineapples, the mainstay of the island's economy. Laborers were brought in from areas such as Asia and Japan to pick pineapples. That's how I met Sam. He had worked on the plantations and was going to show me one of the last remaining pineapple fields. So Sam, you've lived in Lanai all your life?
That is correct.
But you're part Korean.
Part Korean.
So how did your family come to the island?
My dad, when he came to the island of Oahu, they were shipped out to the island of Hawaii in Hilo to work in some of those plantations over there. There were a contingent of people who wanted to come here, the Koreans. So all of them got on a boat. After 3 years, then they came to Lanai, island of Lanai.
Sam, I noticed that there's some plants that are bigger than others.
Okay.
Can you explain that?
Now this is a good picture right here. This is known as slips, a secondary plant, okay? Now the mother plant is right here. Now I know there's going to be two more over here, and this is what known as the slips. You can break it off and put it up here, and that material is going to be used as planting materials later on.
And how long does it take for a pineapple plant to grow?
Oh, when the first planting you're done, it takes 22 months from the time you plant and the time to harvest in the old days.
During the war, Sam, because there was a lot of Japanese people working in the fields, were they discriminated against?
Nope.
No.
We still live the same way like we've been doing.
Were they interned or did everything remain the same?
Only those who were taken to the intern camp because of the fact that, I don't know, some people they figure they're not right to be out there, so they take them in. But after that, they find out he's innocent of all those things.
Where were those camps located?
Well, they had one in Honolulu, but most of them were shipped to the mainland.
And then once the war was over, what happened?
Well, some of those people who belong on this island were sent back to here, this place here.
There were many people of Japanese descent still on the island, as there were people of many cultures. Well, the next person I met was Steve, who was from mainland USA. He was like many people on the island who came for a short period, then stayed. The first thing he took me to see were petroglyphs, rock drawings made by 19th century Hawaiians, depicting a time when each island had its own chief.
You can see some Hawaiian petroglyphs over here, different ages of the petroglyphs. Here's one that looks more recent.
Can we walk up here and
Sure.
take a look at the
Sure,
the
we can
others?
walk slowly up there.
Okay. Oh, and up there looks like a turtle.
Yeah, it looks like a turtle and some people there. Different people here. It looks like maybe even a family unit here. There's a smaller person there and a larger person there. This is found all over Hawaii. Each island is a little different than Big Island has larger, for some reason, petroglyphs. Lanai has smaller. Who knows why they did that, but they are different.
How exactly did they make these drawings on the rock?
From what I understand, what I've read, they'd take smaller rocks, a little denser rocks, and they'd actually pound them on the surface until they'd get a light layer of the rock actually flecked off.
Oh, here's those ones that you were talking about earlier with
I think these
the headdress.
were chiefs or somebody of importance because they had some type of headdress on them. And you can see there's 3 different people here, and the different ages of them from the erosion or the wear on them probably depicted 3 different individual chiefs or someone of royalty at that time.
The petroglyphs showed an old way of life on the island. There were still many old traditions such as archery, which Steve showed me how to do.
Take your bow hand and hold it here, your left hand.
Can I give you that?
There.
Okay.
And then we'll take the arrow, and this is your shelf. We're going to set the shaft of the arrow right there. Draw back and try to get your hand or your thumb to come back close to your cheek as you're comfortable with, and just kind of feel it.
Okay.
Pull it towards your cheek there. There you go. Oh, almost.
Well, that went really far.
Okay, let's try that again. This would have been the type of bow that they used thousands of years ago, and up until modern time people use them. Almost. That's pretty good. Good shot.
I don't know. I think I'll leave this sport to you. The final stage of my trip took me to the island of Molokai. Molokai is known as the Friendly Island. The main town of Molokai was quite small. The buildings resembled an old western town and seemed untouched, almost like it would have looked years ago. My first stop was Molokai Ranch, a working cattle ranch. Ranching has been in Hawaii since the early 1800s, which began at a time of the great Hawaiian king, Kamehameha. The king brought in Mexican cowboys, and the great tradition of the Hawaiian cowboy was born. So, Jimmy, you're a 4th-generation cowboy.
Yes, I am.
How exactly did your family come to the island?
Well, actually, my father's Portuguese, French, Hawaiian. And actually, the Portuguese side of a family that started to work for King Kamehameha at the time of his reign over this ranch.
How exactly did ranching start on the island?
Well, actually, it started back in 1793 when a British sea captain by the name of George Vancouver landed on the island of Hawaii and presented to King Kamehameha the Great 8 head of cattle. And from that 8 head, it actually bred and became huge in numbers. We learn our traditional cowboys from the Mexican, Indian, Spanish vaqueros. But most of our old bridles and saddle are all carbon copies from the Mexican cowboys. But this is more of the type of saddle that our ancestors used, except this is not it. This is just a carbon copy of them.
So I'd be able to sit on it?
You bet.
Do you mind if I go for a
No,
ride?
I don't.
Yeah? Okay. Jimmy was great. He showed me how the cowboys train by practicing riding, herding cattle, and trying to stay on a mechanical bull. Well, I was ready to give up. Jimmy was not. So do you think you'll be doing this until you retire?
What would I do if I retired? I'd probably get back on a horse and ride out in the range and help the boys with the cattle and do everything I did on the ranch anyway. So I don't think I'm ready to retire, and I'm not looking forward to retirement.
So you'll just ride on out into the sunset.
That's right. Let the sun set and call it a day.
My day was not up yet. I met with Felipo, who worked at the ranch and was very knowledgeable about Hawaiian culture and customs. This is such a beautiful valley. Can you tell me a little bit about this place?
Sure, I'd be glad to. It is, as you say, a beautiful valley. This is where I was born and raised.
I noticed there's a beautiful waterfall.
That's called Mo'ula, and that's a very sacred waterfall because of the legendary god, the Mo'o.
And what's the legend behind the waterfall?
The legend tells about before you go swimming, you got to get permission from the god. They take a branch of the tea leaf, break it, and tie a stone to the bottom of it. And legend says you put the tea plant into there. And if it floats as it goes around the circle into that pool without sinking, permission is granted to swim. But if it sinks, it's a no-no. And if you break that kapu, legend says anything can happen.
Did you swim in that waterfall when you were growing up?
Yes, many times. And when I first learned about the legend and how actually to do all these kind of ritual things with my grandfather, when we put the tea leaf in there, it actually sank. And as a little boy, I couldn't understand it, but it did hurt my feelings when my grandfather said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't swim. Permission is not granted." But as a young boy, I cried because I wanted to go swimming. But I had to respect that.
Do you pass the stories and legends on to your own children?
Yes, I do. Not only to my own children, but to many of the young children that are here on the island of Molokai. They need to know these things, yeah? Because a lot of these things are getting lost. Because our children are so bombarded with different things from the outside, and if nobody trained them about their culture, it would be lost.
Can you show me a farewell greeting?
I can give you one.
Okay.
E hea e na ho aloha. Mahalo na malahini e mai I ka aina o halawa. Hu me ke aloha mai ka na au. Mai ka aina o halawa. Aloha e. Aloha e.
That was such a beautiful chant. I'll certainly take that with me as I leave the island. So mahalo. One of Felipo's sons, Greg, was surfing nearby, so he volunteered to give me my first surfing lesson. So Greg, you're going to teach me how to surf today.
All right.
Okay, what's the first thing I need to do?
First thing you need to do is learn how to balance yourself on the surfboard. Yeah, you want to find the center of the board.
Am I there?
You might want to move back a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. And then from there, you're going to start paddling. Yeah, just like that. As you start to pick up speed, you're going to slowly push yourself up like this. And then you're going to hop up on your feet. On your feet, yep. You can slowly set yourself up and stand up just like that.
I realized it takes a lot of patience to be a surfer, but it was so much fun. I'd definitely try it again. It's interesting because I don't think I would have ever seen this side of the islands if I hadn't stopped to talk to the people. When you travel, if you go to the tourist areas and do everything shown in the travel brochure, you miss out on the true experience of traveling. It's when you stop to talk to the people and tell them why you're visiting their home. They take you in and show you the real country. And in this case, the people showed me the real Hawaii. Well, even though I was a lousy surfer, it was a great way to end the day. I would be up to a more physical challenge the next day. The next day, on my trip to the Hawaiian Islands, I visited the Kalapapa Peninsula. Kalapapa has a very unexpected and sad claim to fame. Kalapapa is a hard-to-reach peninsula on the island of Molokai. It's surrounded by sheer cliffs and rough water. To get down to the peninsula, I had to take a mule ride down approximately 1,600 feet of hair-raising turns. Many times I felt like I was going to fall off the mule, but as I learned from my guide, they have sturdy feet. All in all, it took about an hour and a half to get down, and I arrived safely. Kalapapa is a peninsula which at one time was a leprosy colony founded more than a century ago. Leprosy was thought to have come to the islands spread by Asian laborers. Individuals were forcibly taken from their families to be isolated from the rest of the world. They were not allowed to leave the area and initially had little or no medical treatment. Because patients still reside on the island, the Kalapapa Peninsula is a restricted area. You can't take pictures of the people, You have to have a permit and you must stay with a guide to get into the area. That's how I met Richard Marks. There are some people who you will meet in your life and you know you'll never forget. Richard was one of those individuals. So Richard, can you tell me how you came to the island?
Well, I came as a child to visit when they brought my family in here, one at a time. Then later on, I went to sea, and I had a bad motorcycle accident, and that's when I first noticed the signs of leprosy, Hansen disease on me.
And why were your family brought here?
They were all brought in as patients over the years. Started with my grandmother before I was born. And they took her youngest son, turned him loose, took her youngest daughter, picked him up again, locked him up here for the rest of his life. Then they brought my dad when I was 9. They brought my baby sister when I was 10. They turned my baby sister loose when I was 12, and they locked up my older sister. She still lives here. And then I was about 14 when they took my older brother. I went to Honolulu for Easter. Next thing my mother knew, I was halfway to Australia. I got on the first ship that would give me a job to get me out of these islands. I knew they would hound me, and I was one who would never cooperate, so I knew they'd get hold of me sooner or later. You can have it all your life, it doesn't bother you as long as you're in good physical condition. But once your resistance goes down, that's it. So it surfaced on me, and I decided, well, since my family was here, my dad was getting old, I felt I'd stay a couple of years here, get enough material, medicines and stuff together, and then disappear, but I never never left. I've been here 44 years.
Could you explain to me what leprosy or Hansen disease is?
Well, it's very, very hard to explain. It depends. There's so many different theories. It's supposed to be a disease of the fine blood vessels, and they infect the fine nerve endings. When they affect the nerve endings, you lose sensation and all, and you constantly have damage without realizing it. You keep hurting yourself. And that's where the damage comes in. Then later on, if it advances enough, you got bone absorption. And every once in a while, you got to cut open to take out chunks of bone. It's really hard to pin down. Hell, until a few years ago, they couldn't even find an animal that would take human leprosy. They finally found the armadillo that takes human leprosy. And now with the medications they have, in 3 or 4 days, it's no problem. Those of us that went off on the old medication can reactivate once in a while, but otherwise with the medicines they have now, the more modern understanding, it's no problem at all.
Could you leave now if you wanted?
Oh yeah, all of our people are free to go now. They don't lock up leprosy patients anymore. They're all treated as outpatients now.
Do a lot of people leave, or did they?
No. Oh, our people go out, yeah. Las Vegas is our home away from home.
I think the one thing I really learned from this experience is that no matter where you go, there's always a story to be told. I felt like I was at home there, and everyone made me feel at home. I know that I'll take a piece of Hawaii home with me when I go back to my home.